Okay, so as we discussed, the whole thing kind of fell apart. It didn't fall apart, but it seems that way when one part of the essay doesn't come together. And that's what happened with the little simple statement that I was going to make to wrap up all of this information and spirituality and all this kind of strategy was going to be wrapped up in a very simple statement by the portisan man. That fell apart. So now what are we going to do? Well, what we do after we cry just a little bit is we go back to the outline. Not the big outline that has all the stuff copied and pasted and color coded. That'll just make me confused. So I'm going to go back to the simple outline. That was our strategy that we did at the very beginning of this project. Let's go look. Okay, so do you remember this strategy that we created? All right, so I'm going to go back to that thesis statement in a second. So we had the factual basis from the tipping point. Remember, that was the concrete evidence. This worked, that worked, this happened, that happened. Power of the context, the law of the few, connectors, and the stickiness factor. That was the first section of the essay. The second section of the essay is the spiritual theory, because while this factual basis is all well and good, it doesn't really explain everything. The reason this essay is so long is because the question is so enormous. How did this happen? And people have, for years and decades, said, oh, well, the kids were all on drugs. Okay, well, we've gone through a lot of concerts. The kids were on drugs there, too. And it ended in tear gas and murders and stabbings and God only knows what kind of ruckus. So somehow this happened. We used a factual basis to lay the foundation like we would for building a house. And then once we have that house built, we're going to take off into the Ethernet. And we're going to go way beyond. So that's where we had the spiritual theory, which consisted of the Western esoteric, the deeper I, and this spiritual element, which never kind of fit in right there, did it? Because we've already got this. Okay, so I'm looking at that and I'm going, maybe. Now we have the other concrete stuff, the power of context, law of the few, connectors, stickiness factor. Spiritual theory. We have the Western esoteric. So instead of Eastern philosophy as the foundation for what I'm going to say, for how this happened, I'm going to use Western esoteric because that's where I found a marvelous article that I feel like fit really well with this argument. And then I went into the deeper I, which is the experience of the individual within the context of this enormous crowd. And then from there I went to the deeper we, which is where the crowd is behaving as one. And what's missing? We have the people in the crowd. We, as individuals, we have the people in the entire venue as the we. That includes the hog farm people with wavy gravy. That includes the, all that stuff. What's missing? Well, I'm glad that thing with the porta man didn't turn out because I didn't say one word about the music. So that's what helped me when I take that out and I see, okay, that's not going to go there. That's where that used to go. What's missing? And what's missing is the shared we. And this is something that I'm going to make up myself. This came from article information. This came from article information. The deeper we, I took those principles and I created the deeper we. And now I'm looking at the shared we between the audience and the musicians. Does that make sense? So that means that I have a very balanced essay, don't I? The tipping point, which are the facts, and then the spiritual theory, which is separated into 4 areas. But now we've got to prove this, the shared we. And the first thing I have to do is go back up to my thesis statement, which, of course, this is a huge essay because of all the questions. If I was writing an essay that said, which treatment for Alzheimer's is the most effective, that would be a fairly short essay. But this is a theory essay, and I've asked a huge question: how did this happen? So this becomes the deeper I, the deeper we. And this was the introduction, as you recall. So there's our fourth point, the shared we. And I want to show you how this happened, because I think it's a fun way of writing essays. You can take this or leave it, but I want you to see it anyway, just so you know. Okay, so here's our ridiculous thesis statement. To understand the power of Woodstock 1969 experience, a study of the tipping point criteria of power of context, law of the few, connectors, and the stickiness factor combine, there's our verb, with the laws of Western esoteric philosophy to form, object, a theory of the unexpected cataclysmic success of the most influential socio-cultural event of the 20th century, a symphony of mystic intuition, Western esoteric principles, and spirituality, including the deeper we, the deeper I, the deeper we, and the shared we. I know, it's preposterous. I know. Let's look at this shared we. Okay, so I have to start with, we're going to talk about the music now. And here's where okay, what about the music? We have to connect that music somehow to the thing, since that was the whole point of the entire concert. So let's do this. I go to my opinion. My opinion is that the key critical performances of the festival, and this is just my thinking, is John Sebastian, Sly and the Family Stone, Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young. Naturally, Richie Havens is important because he started the concert, and so I'm going to have to mention that in my introduction to this section. So, no, you can't miss that one, because Richie Havens wasn't scheduled to go on until 5th, and nobody was there. The concert had started, and people had been there for 3 days waiting for the 3-day concert to start, and nobody's there. They can't get any musicians into the festival site because there are, at that point, 300,000 people, and another 1 million people surrounding, and another 1 million people on the highways trying to get there. And we've established that already through all of the, the highway patrol reports and all the other stuff that I have that we used to approximate how many people were involved, which is 4 million. All right. Richie Havens just happens to be there. His band has not arrived. He's there and available. And so they take that little arm and say, we'd like for you to go perform now, right now. And that's how the concert got started, with a folk singer. So you have however many 100,000 people I just said, all cheering for a folk singer. All right. So we can't not miss that. But then these are critical. So I start thinking about these, and I go, okay, well, this whole timeline of how things happen and when they happen. And so I look at, I just kind of look at the timeline to see what's happening, when things happen. Let's look at that. Okay, so here's our timeline, and this is when the performers performed in their set lists. Okay, so we come down here to my first key critical performance. Saturday, rainy, miserable, and Quill performs Country Joe McDonald at 1 o'clock. This is after the thunderstorm, during the thunderstorm, and around the thunderstorm. And he's there without his band, too. So that's pivotal. And then Santana at 2 o'clock. And Santana, of course, rocked the whole house. And now we have a folk singer, John Sebastian, at the right place at the right time, not scheduled to perform at all, taken by the hand and said, hello, thank you so much for being here. Would you come and perform for us right now? Okay, so he comes on at 3:30 p.m. Let's put that on my little chart. Okay, so just make a note that he is playing at 3:30 p.m. on Saturday. And now I'm looking to see, well, when did Sly and the Family Stone come on? And this is into Sunday morning. Thunderstorms, all kinds of stuff. out of food, out of water, all this kind of thing. Slide the family stone. Ooh, they come on at 3:30 a.m. on Sunday. What? Let's put that on my list. And I'm just, I'm just playing with this, and I'm just looking. So we got 3:30 p.m. Saturday, 3:30 a.m. Sunday. Let's see when Crosby, Stills, and Nash & Young played. Okay, so we go on through Sunday. Jefferson Airplane at 8 a.m. on Sunday. Joe Cocker's at 2 p.m. Joe, 6:30 p.m., 10 years after the band. Now we're into Monday morning, August 18th. And what? Same time frame. Okay, and then I check some other sources, and I find out that they actually started Sweet Judy Blue Eyes at 3:30 a.m. Okay, so let's repeat it here. All right, now I'm going to go out to the internet and see if I can find anything about this number situation that might offer a spiritual explanation. And I just type in this. Well, you can't see it up here, but I typed in, what does the number 330 mean? My goodness, I love the internet. Okay, so now we're looking at angel numbers. Okay, I'll play. So let's go and look at angel numbers. And we find this meaning and symbolism of 330. Okay, but here's the thing, you all. We have to have a foundation like we did with the tipping point. I can't just go in there and say the number 330 means this, because I have to put some science behind it, right? Because it has to have an air of vetted about it. I can't just throw in this is what an angel number is, because I've opened up this little can of worms, and now I have to at least set a bit of a foundation for this angel numbers thing. So what are numbers? We have to go to numerology, and this is fun. I'll love it. I'm all the way out of Earth now, and this is because we set a foundation on Earth with the tipping point that formed a sound basis, and now I'm free to go play up in the heavens and see what I can find. Okay, but I have to, there's numerology. Okay, so now numerology is a science. This is too, but this is one of the, the luxury sciences. So let's find out about numerology. Okay, so we find the number 330 is a blend of influences, and three, all right, good. So that gives us a foundation, and it moves into the angel numbers when the angels are using these to speak to people. Okay, I'll play. Sounds like fun to me. Okay, so I'm going to use some of this to set a foundation for this information, this symbolic 330. I won't take you through the whole thing, but it did consist of going from link to link to link and checking this out and that out. It's just so much fun. And I'm drawing connections. So now I'm ready to go in and write this section on the shared we. And this is just that one section of the essay. Let's proofread it together. In addition to the agreed, now what I'm going to do first, I hate to interrupt myself, but people would say and have said, oh, it's just not that remarkable. Okay, so throughout the essay, as you've seen in our outline, we've peppered through examples of what happened at other festivals that also had a great number of people. Nowhere near this number. We've shown that on the graph. But I've already shown what happened in other audiences, and they were on drugs too. And they had inclement weather too. And these things happened. So I'm going to have to do that whenever I set up a logical argument here for the shared we, which is so far out of space that I've got to have some sort of legitimacy to it. So I'm going to start with a contrast. In addition to the agreed demeanor of the deeper we, attention must be paid to the shared we of the music vibrations. Analysts have pondered the effects of music on the human spirit for centuries. In the article, Music and Noise, Same or Different, What Our Body Tells Us, the researchers agree that the musical experience then can be described in terms of a specific relationship between the material bodies of the listener and the vibrational properties of the sounds. Truly, an entire study could be made. Now, this is how I'm getting out of turning this into a dissertation, because I'm not going to go into, and I could, oh my gosh, I could turn this into a 300-page book. But instead, I'm going to add this little statement right here that's going to protect me from having to go too far deep into this, but to simply pose the theory. Truly, an entire study could be made of the effects of sound on the human psyche. Here, the connection between the sound and the audience demeanor must at least breeze the surface of effect. From the perspective of acoustics, music is energy that pulsates through and across a medium. The structural interpretation and aesthetic conceptualization of it occur when the sound has been processed, decoded, and interpreted in our nervous system. This was a great article. Oh, it was a fantastic article. While it is not a far cry to imagine a room of 100 young people all elevated to a realm beyond the planets, with or without drugs, it is challenging to consider the effects of music on 400,000 or more people all crowded together. First, a contrast. I know the director of my thesis would probably, flag that, but I don't care. I'm getting ready to lay out this theory that is so far-fetched that if I can start on the ground level, I don't know, but I'm going to leave it there for now. On the final draft, I may take that out, but it does show I'm taking the reader where I'm going to take the reader, and we're getting ready to leave the earth in a minute. To illustrate the powerful effect of the music on the audience demeanor, again, what is this with demeanor? I'm going to go find a better word. I'll be right back. Gosh, I'm repeating the same word. I went to the dictionary and found a fabulous word. To illustrate the phenomenon can be contrasted with the events of Woodstock 1999, another failed attempt to recreate the magic of the original. The music lineup for that concert featured Limp Bizkit and Korn, both of which allegedly encouraged violence. Ultimate classic, and that's my source. I've stayed away from a lot of opinion in this because I'm just laying out facts. Naturally, many factors contributed to the destruction, but it is no coincidence that the fires and mayhem began after encouragement from frontman Fred Durst. Audience members reacted not only to the rapes and stabbings at the events, but the fact that the acts, all elevated on a 20-foot stage, were in a totally different world from the audience, and that surely affects the perspective of artists like Jonathan Davis, the lead singer of Korn. When he talks about Woodstock 99, he doesn't think about sexual assaults. His only remark about the fires, the riots, and the rapes was, it was the biggest fucking group of people I ever saw in a festival setting like that in America, and all I know is our show was amazing. Davis interview. Having watched the performance, it could be agreed that Limp Bizkit entertained themselves beautifully. And again, I didn't say I'm going to, because I can put my opinion in here, y'all. Instead of just being this passive voice, it could be agreed. Well, you know what? I'm just going to go for it. I'm going to put my own opinion in there because having watched the performance, I agree. I'm going to do it. All right. Near the end of Woodstock 99, PAX, a peace-promoting group, performed. They passed out candles to advance their cause. Next, Red Hot Chili Peppers ended the concert with a cover of Jimi Hendrix's Fire, just as concert-goers were using the candles to set off fires. Whether the sounds that filled the air at Woodstock 99 constituted more noise than melody, and a subjective interpretation of the noise would thus conclude that the term noise, moreover, has three main usages: sound at potentially deafening levels, unwanted sounds, and statistical processes that where events are random and uncorrelated, is debatable. I know. But, the fact remains that the concert and weather conditions of Woodstock 99 and the original Woodstock were comparable. And while the air in 99 was filled with 4 days of pounding drums, hysterical guitars, and unremarkable vocalists, Rolling Stone said that, hot temperatures and inflated egos, This happened while at least 8 girls were violently raped, looters went on the spree, and violence erupted. By contrast, the vibrations emanating from Woodstock 69, regardless of subjective taste, nevertheless participated in a relatively calm and certainly nonviolent audience. We into the hours of Sunday morning, bands scheduled to perform first were still waiting. Originally slated to play second on Saturday afternoon, the day had passed and it was 1:30 a.m. Perhaps one of the best explanations for the powers of the shared we is a quote from Creedence Clearwater Revival frontman John Fogerty. "We were ready to rock, and we are waiting and waiting, and finally it was our turn. There were 500,000 people asleep. These people were out. It was sort of like painting a Dante scene, just bodies from hell all intertwined and asleep, covered with mud. And this is the moment I will never forget as long as I live." A quarter mile away in the darkness, on the outer edge of this bowl, there was some guy flickering his bick, and in the night I hear, "Don't worry about it, John, we're with you." I played the rest of the show for that guy. As difficult as it is to imagine a performer on a stage connecting to one voice in a sea of 600,000 people, the fact that a force was and had been from the beginning in charge of the lineup can explain the power of a single voice in a crowd. Documentary evidence. Okay, so now we're going to be talking about the lineup, aren't we? Documentary evidence as well as personal accounts point to key performances that excited and calmed the crowd. Can it be a mistake that Richie Havens, originally scheduled to perform fifth, happened to be at the stage without his band and available just when the crowd became restless, an hour after the scheduled start of the festival? Havens' initial response to Morris' request that he start a concert in front of then 300,000 people was, "Hey man, don't put me in front of your mess." And then what happened? Havens left the scene as a one and became engulfed by the power of the shared we, and then this happened. 300,000 people seated and another 100,000 outside the fences cheering for a folk singer. The realm of this music is outside the context of the human experience and under the orchestration of a higher power that clearly took over for the human schedulers. That's kind of an introduction to the scheduling thing. You can't talk about the whole thing without Richie Havens. You just can't. Okay. It's just a paragraph. The music lineup sheet was abandoned less than an hour into the Friday concert. Which band went on next depended on which band was able to make it to the venue. The tone of the festival was set by the announcers, the Hog Farm team, and the general attitude of the audience. According to band wrangler John Morris, the schedule went out the door right away. Nobody could get in because of the crowds. There were lots of little accidents, performance time slots changing, late band arrivals, and it's again, if you believe in karma, the guys who leaned into it, who put themselves out there like John Sebastian, had a small career with the Lovin' Spoonful before this, but was willing to go on last minute. The drama of the weather events, hordes of people, and lack of food and water was overcome, in principal part by the shared we experience of the music. While performers at the 1999 revival of Woodstock were detached from the audience, caught up in their own drama, the acts of Woodstock connected to the audience somehow. While all 32 acts could be studied for scientific connectivity to the collective of the audience, for the purposes of this analysis, 3 performances are discussed. Not will be, but are. Will be's in the future. This is happening right now. John Sebastian, Sly and the Family Stone, Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young. Okay, so now this tells the reader that the next paragraphs are all going to be about who? John Sebastian, Sly and the Family Stone, Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young. The significance of the performances of Sebastian, Sly, and CSNY are associated beyond the talent and the melody into the realm of the shared we, at least in part, by the time of the performance. Now we're moving into the 3:30 thing. Do you see that? I laid a bit of a foundation of what happened and the facts, and now we are ready for takeoff, and we are headed up into the heavens. Far from random, these performances all took the stage at around 3:30, and that's where we're going to have a list. John Sebastian at 3:30 p.m. Saturday. Sly and the Family Stone, 3:30 a.m. Sunday, and Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young, 3:30 a.m. Monday. Doesn't it just sound like, of course that makes sense. Of course it makes sense. And we started with the songs that I thought were most influential, because at this stage of the game, you all, I've watched every documentary on Woodstock. I've studied it. I've listened to, oh my gosh, you've seen the citation list. According to the spiritual vectors, scientific references to numbers. Okay, so there's where we're laying our foundation for where we're fixing to go. References to numbers are the symbology for understanding the outer universe. To understand the connection of the whole to the inner universe without the context of the group. Angel numbers explain the significance of the shared numerical sequences. Sounds plausible to me. Dr. Robert Barkman explains numerical pattern recognition as a key determinant of a person's potential to think logically, verbally, numerically, and spatially. To the inner voice, the shared experience of the we, each number holds a special significance. It sounds perfectly plausible to me. For the purposes of this evaluation, remember, we're not going into Eastern philosophy. We're using Western esoteric. I'm not about to change horses now in the middle of the stream. Remember, we started off and made a decision a long time ago whether we wanted to go to Eastern philosophy or Western philosophy. And that's when we found that fantastic article where everything that was Western esoteric fits so beautifully into this Woodstock experience. There's a Western esoteric spiritual principles are applied and are thus the interpretation of the angel numerical system. At least a reasonable explanation of the Woodstock crowd behavior could be the association with the performance times, the actual content of those performances related to a numerical communication. According to the angel numbers, the number 33 symbolized compassion, guidance, blessing, love, and humanity. The number 0, as might be expected, is associated with the alpha and omega of all life experience. The number 0 symbolizes, here we go, I love it, eternity, God, universal forces, and energy. Should we put a picture up here of angels? No. Should we stay with Woodstock? You don't want a little picture of angels? Okay, we won't. I think it'd be fun, though. Let me go find one. I'll be right back. I know. It's pretty, isn't it? I think it's pretty. Pretty colors. Gives an air of authenticity. Okay, Western. According to the angel numbers, is therefore no universal force. And I'm asking a question. I know. I tell everybody don't ask questions in essays, and so this one I don't know. It's like breaking that big rule of you don't ask questions in an essay. It's insulting to the reader. I know, but we've become so close, the reader and me. The number 0 is my the number 0 is angel numbers. Is it, therefore, a far cry to associate the number 330 with the performances of Sebastian Slastius in critical times in the concert scheduling, where the song, the singer, and the audience all connect into a shared experience? I don't even think, why do I need that? I keep apologizing for my theory. You see where I'm apologizing for my theory there? I'm like, buy this gag, y'all, and it's perfectly plausible. It's as good as anything anybody else has got. I'll tell you right now, nobody else has been able to explain it, so, okay. Not the only time during the weekend the performers actually spoke directly to the audience. These 3 performances are key to an understanding of the angelic number communication of with the shared we. Now that I took that sentence out, I'm not sure about the rest of this. I got to look over this paragraph again. Do you see what I was doing there? My gosh, I was just like apologizing for this lofty theory when it's perfectly plausible. Okay, so this is no longer an effective transition sentence. We're getting ready to talk about the performances. 1 paragraph each. John Sebastian, Sly and the Stone, and Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young. We're 3 paragraphs away from the finale of this. So this is not an effective this doesn't tell us what's coming next. Okay, so I'm going to fix this. I'll be right back. Look at that a second, though, and then you'll see when I fix it. Okay, so in the paragraphs, I've listed Sebastian, Sly and the Stone, Crosby. If I do that, by now the reader knows what I'm talking about, the 3 performances. And I know I wish I could code it, but I may. Throughout the weekend, Woodstock performers actually spoke directly to the audience with charming vulnerability, filled the air with a variety of music styles, and these 3 performances present a key to an understanding of the angelic numerical communication with the share of communication of prepositions. Always a problem. John Sebastian was not a scheduled performer at Woodstock, but had managed to hitchhike a ride to the festival. I love this picture. Doesn't this show him as the shared we? There aren't that many pictures of his, although the one with him from the back was used as the anniversary poster. But look at that. Isn't that a great picture? That took quite a while to find, and I got permission to use it. Isn't that great? Just look at the John Sebastian, a little-known musician, songs with right place when 3:30 p.m. on Saturday the rains. It ceased for a time. The air was already felt like the crowd was beginning to stir. Rolling Stone. Sebastian had just arrived by a little prop plane. John Morris described songbirds and said, "Hi, good to see you. Sorry we never called you before. Would you get on the stage?" And that was a lovely interview with John Morris. Boy, I got a lot out of that little interview. He didn't do that many interviews, I'll tell you right now. John Sebastian immediately engaged with the audience, estimated at 550,000 at the time, with some public service announcements. In his own words, just love everyone around you and clean up a little garbage. It'll be all right. And look out for the fences, too. The press can only say bad things unless there ain't no fuck-ups, and there ain't going to be no fuck-ups. 602. See, that was a great find. Oh, so happy to find that one. Oh. Sebastian finished his set with his song Younger Generation. Remember, song titles go in quotes. The closing lyrics of Sebastian's songs are a warning, a predictor. Oops, look, we got a gap here. I got to fix this. I'm going to show you how to fix this right here. We go up to layout, and somehow a gap got in there. So we just take that little gap down to 0. And then that's going to be a problem. There. Hey, Pop, my girlfriend's only 3, and she's got her own, what is this happening? Got her own video phone, and she's taken LSD, and now that we're best friends, she wants to give a bit to me. And what's the matter, Daddy? How come you're turning green? Can it be you can't live up to your dream? Something stopped Sebastian as he completed the song, and he interrupted himself. No, it's not because we're doing it. I love you. In remembrance, even Sebastian himself has no idea how those words came to him. But the result is inescapable. The crowd was energized and calmed in a single performance of a novice folk singer. Okay, so this is that point of the shared we that has to do with him connecting directly to the audience and talking to them. And the next one, Sly and the Family Stone, is where he is going to instruct the audience. And Crosby, Stills, Nash, and Young is the part where they become the audience. You see how we split that up into 3 easy sections? So each musician has a paragraph, and in that paragraph is described how they created a shared we, which is different from the last, but all connected by the number 330. I love it. Musicians and performers continued throughout Sunday, August 16th at 3:30 p.m. Sunday morning. The crowd was energized by Sly and the Family Stone. The weather had been dismal, and Sly, who had been scheduled to perform at around midnight, or on a 3, was on a 3-hour-plus delay. With all the charm in the world, Sly invited the exhausted audience to join in a sing-along. Really? That might have been a fun idea at 9 p.m., but 3:30 a.m.? Sly talked to the audience of 600,000 like he was talking to 10 people. What we would like to do is sing a song together. Now, you see what usually happens is that you got a group of people who might sing, but for some good reason, they won't do it. Most of us need approval. It goes on for a long time, but that's just the part that I quoted. The decision to offer a sing-along moment was gutsy and spontaneous. Already famous, Sly was known for his intentions. He wanted to create an experience where people could look on stage and see the world and how the world can get along. Sly's overriding objective was designed to show the audience that if they could see we were having fun, it might make it easier for them to catch on. In an interview, Sly's drummer described the frenzy before they performed. We huddled and looked at each other and said, let's do our thing and do it as hard as we can. By about the second or third song, people were coming out of their tents and sleeping bags and bobbing their heads, Errico said. It was off the hook. You could feel it. Unimaginably, a soaked and exhausted group cheered and sang along as if chanting to the heavens. The chorus of 600,000 voices can be explained only in the chanting. Should we say it? Oh! I'm going to do it. The vibration of Sly's performance carried forward into Sunday, and it could be argued, in part braced the audience. Now, that needs to be passive, because they play at 3:30 a.m. At 4:30 p.m. was the 3-hour thunderstorm that didn't kill anybody. Come on, y'all. How do you explain that? 600,000 people, soaked, nowhere to go, nowhere to run, just having to take it. And 3-hour hurricane-level thunderstorm. How did nobody drown? All right, anyway. Could be argued, in part braced the audience for the powerful thunderstorm that wreaked havoc on the event at around 4:30 p.m. Sullivan, now this is significant because I have to just keep showing the reader how implausible this was to happen, because it's easy to forget how many people that many people is. Okay, for Sullivan County had already been named a disaster area by the SBA in Washington, D.C. as a result of repeated storms and flooding. August 1st. Thus, the tragic storm of Sunday afternoon was foretold and not unexpected. I had a view of the field, and I couldn't believe what I was seeing, says Porter. Waves and waves of torrential water hitting hundreds of thousands of people who had nowhere to go. I liked this quote, you all, because if I put in every quote from everybody, this paragraph would have been 1,000,000 miles long, but I thought this really was a significant little interview. The correlation between the fact that hundreds of thousands of people were ambushed by a torrential storm and none of them were drowned could possibly have a numerical alignment. The number 437 is a warning of powerful and dangerous events to come. According to angel number 437, offers comfort, the angels offer protection, and a hope that, quote, good things are to come, but that it will be necessary to focus on positivity whenever possible in order to imagine good things. I realize that the connection to numerical wisdom may sound far-fetched, but the fact remains, over 600,000 people in the venue, another 100,000 in the neighboring woods, traffic jams, campsites, and highways all survived a mud storm that could and should have wiped out at least a percentage of the population. Angel intervention is as plausible as any other theory. Okay, because that was going far out with the 437. But I don't care. It makes perfect sense to me. And I have set a foundation for it because, remember, we went up to the science of numerology. I cannot imagine the mindset of the Woodstock audience by early morning hours of Monday, August 17th, 1969. They had been through the excitement of a weekend concert, epic performances, heat, rain, mud, lack of sleep, hunger, thirst, good drugs and bad drugs, disorientation, rainstorms, thunderstorms, more rain, and filth in all forms. Good heavens. And still the crowd was in a positive spirit. One of the coveted performances took place at 3:30 p.m. by Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young. Graham Nash remembers, when you consider playing acoustic guitars to 400,000 people and trying to reach the back of the crowd with songs like Guinevere, it was absurd. And this is them with their acoustic guitars. Now, I'm going to talk about the music. So, as you remember, John Sebastian talks to the crowd like he's their friend. Sly and the Family Stone invites them like he is sort of their teacher and invites them to do a sing-along. And now, Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young take the stage and do a folk song with acoustic guitars to 400,000 people. To that point, how was it possible for four acoustics to achieve the effect that was reported by one fan as the best act of Woodstock? After Blood, Sweat, and Tears ended their set with a horn section and electric. Let me fix this. It certainly was a risk to begin the next set with a quiet, complex acoustic melody. Now we're going to talk about acoustics. According to the principles of physics, as a guitar string vibrates, it sets surrounding air molecules into vibrational motion. Physics classroom, the crowd had grown quiet after the "You've Made Me So Very Happy" end. The acoustic vibrations were able to pierce the air and create a wave of excited peace throughout the crowd. The Henley sound system was incredible, but remember that the crowd stretched more than a mile into and beyond the performance audience area. The wave, we don't need this italicized, we are not into this. The wave created from the acoustic passed and was lifted from row to row as each individual member of the row became temporarily displaced out of his or her seat, only to return to it as the wave passed by. This mental picture of a stadium wave will also provide a useful context for the discussion of the physics of wave motion. It's not in the future. The audience was no longer a set of individuals huddled together listening to a song. They became part of the melody. They were the ebb and the flow of the wave created by the performers who were connected to them by an evolutionary connective string. David Crosby commented on a day later on the Dick Cavett show about the scene. "Can I describe to you what it looked like flying in on the helicopter? Man, it looked like an encampment of Macedonian army on a Greek hill, crossed with the biggest batch of gypsies you ever saw." Unintimidated by the crowd while still admitting to the audience that they were scared shitless, one of the most remembered groups was Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young. Did I rush that, do you think? I mean, I just set up the science of the strings and the, I think that's plenty. The final result of the Woodstock 69 this is the end of that shared we experience. And this is the last point of the essay, so from here we're going to the conclusion. The final result of the Woodstock 69 shared experience was a crowd that remained enamored throughout the festival. How did helicopters move through the rain to drop dry clothes and flowers into the crowd and become part of the experience instead of above the fray? How did musicians perform in rain, wind, heat, and mud? The explanations here of the deeper I, the deeper we, and the shared we are found in a science that is unrestricted by formula and lies beyond rational numbers. Did angels reach out to the masses and offer protection from drowning or starvation? Well, something did, because it defies all logic to suggest that the festival results can be measured by any certain formula. I love it! I love it! It's justified. It sounds good to me. And now we're ready for the conclusion. So you see how we created that little section from an absolute, when that whole Port of Sand thing, man, happened, I was just, oh my gosh, no, do not tell me this. How can oh my gosh, this is the whole final point of the essay. And then, here we go. So, I think it's good. I like it. Now we'll look at it in the final draft. But for right now, I'm going to save this and I'm going to walk away from it because I think I made some pretty good points. All right? That concludes this tutorial on how to fix it when it all goes wrong.